Live from New York, it's Saturday night! Ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to utter those words. I wanted to be at 30 Rock, and I wanted to be in front of the cameras, in front of the crowd, and say those iconic words. I just said them, on camera, in front of hundreds and thousands of people, online. Not quite the same, but I thought it was appropriate. So, we're here to talk about Saturday Night Live, and obviously they just had their 40th anniversary this past weekend, and there's been a lot of very iconic names and later to be iconic names that have come through the doors of Saturday Night Live. If you are a stand-up comic, or if you were a stand-up comic, whatever decade, you aspired to get to Saturday Night Live, and a lot of very iconic superstars made it. Now, granted, the words I just uttered have been said by musicians, comedians, actors, actresses, sports figures. All different walks of life have said those very iconic words. And their careers have led them to Saturday Night Live. So, why am I talking about SNL? Well, here on the VOR, which of course is the fact that SNL, Saturday Night Live, is iconic, I'm talking about the vlog of randomness today. So here on VOR, we're going to talk about something I don't do very often, and that is a list. Now, there's been top 10 lists, there's been top 11 lists, there's been top 5s. I'm going to do a top 5. I was going to do a top 7, but I'm going to give some honorable mentions. So here I give you out today my top 5 Saturday Night Live movies. Now, if it's a Saturday Night Live movie, it's got to have a few criteria. Number 1, it has to be based on a Saturday Night Live cast sketch. It's got to be an iconic cast sketch, and the 5 that I picked today are definitely iconic sketches from the different levels of Saturday Night Live throughout the history of the program. And the other criteria is I have to like the movie, so that's how it works. Now, before I get started, I've been an SNL fan for a long time. I've been watching since the reruns on Nick at Night, when I was watching Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi and Gilda Radner. I was watching the great iconic superstars of yesterday, people like Steve Martin and John Candy. And I was a big fan of Second City Television, obviously not Saturday Night Live, but an offshoot and something that still needs to be talked about. And one day on Vlog of Randomness we certainly will. But today we're talking about SNL. And as time went on, we learned about Chris Farley, David Spade, Adam Sandler, Rob Schneider. These are names that would become superstars in comedy. And even names today like Jimmy Fallon, who currently is hosting The Tonight Show, and Tina Fey, who is hosting the Oscars, or has hosted the Oscars before. Obviously, when it comes down to it, there's a lot of very recognizable names when it comes to Saturday Night Live, and there's a lot of very recognizable characters. Obviously, I want to definitely mention one of my personal favorites, another iconic TV superstar, another SNL alum that left us way too early, and that's the late, great Phil Hartman. And I was always a big fan of Phil Hartman's work, and he pretty much was the SNL death that hit me the hardest. Chris Farley definitely did, without a doubt, but Phil Hartman hit me even harder, to be honest. I wasn't old enough to appreciate Belushi. I do now, but obviously when his death happened, I kind of was really young, so it wasn't really a possibility. So needless to say, Phil Hartman hit me the hardest. And I want to talk about Saturday Night Live, and I want to talk about the 5 movies that I think are the best. Alright. Now first off, some honorable mentions. Number 1, I am a fan of Al Franken, and I am considered to be a fan of Julia Sweeney, but It's Pat and Stuart Saves His Family are not on this list. I do like the Stuart Smalley character, I always have. The movie's fine, it's just something that did not make my list. And I would be lying to myself and to all of you out there if I didn't throw out a shout out to Tim Meadows and his Leon Phelps, the ladies' man character, who we got a unofficial rebirth in Samuel L. Jackson's character and in Kingsman Secret Service, which just came out last week. I always liked the ladies' man. Always like one of my favorite things I like to do. I used to go into Burger King and order a fish sandwich. It was fun. And also, I would also be remiss if I did not mention the great Molly Shannon. And I was always a big fan of Mary Catherine Gallagher, so Superstar was a movie I very much enjoyed. But it did not make my list, even though I do like the character. The movie's fine, it's just there's more levels to what I'm going to be talking about beyond that. So we're going to kick off with number 5. My number 5 on this list is A Night at the Roxbury. Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan, the bobbing the head to Hathaway's What Is Love. It just seems like it was something that was just going to be done just for maybe one skit, maybe 2 skits, but they didn't know it was going to catch on like it did. The story about this movie is basically both of them are lounge lizards that are unlucky in love, trying to use the worst pickup lines in the history of man, and literally bumping into every single woman they see, trying to get to the mythical Roxbury nightclub. And all sorts of hijinks ensue, including a fender bender with Richard Grieco, which is absolutely hilarious, and comes back at the end. I enjoyed this movie, and it's something that I have seen, I could say probably recently from most of the other stuff on this list, even though this does go back to 1998 when it came out. I always liked the Butabi brothers. I've always liked Hathaway's What Is Love. I don't know why. And whenever you hear that song, you just gotta bob your head. Obviously, you gotta bob your head. And if I did not worry about copyright strikes, I would totally be playing What Is Love right now. You, me? No, you subscribe. So yeah, I had to mention that. It's my number 5 on the list. My number 4 on the list is actually a little lower, probably a lot lower than any of you would have it. I would say most of you would have it towards the top. The only reason I have it as low as I do is because, unfortunately, I was not able to grow up on it like most of you did out there, and that is the Blues Brothers. Now, I have to mention Blues Brothers 2000 for a second. It gets a lot of flack, and I don't think it deserves as much as it totally does. I do like the fact that John Goodman really transitioned well into teaming with Dan Aykroyd, and I think that combination works, and still works to this day. But it wasn't what the iconic pairing of John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd was. I would say right now, this is one of the best comic portrayals in an SNL movie without a doubt. It's got everything you're looking for. The Bluesmobile, we're on a mission from God, basically. They're driving the Bluesmobile, they're trying not to get caught. There's all sorts of great cameos. People like Aretha Franklin, and there's Ray Charles and Cab Calloway. John Candy's in this as well. I mean, it spans the spectrum, and it's a classic, to say the least. And obviously, the finish of the movie with Jailhouse Rock being performed when Jake and Elwood finally get caught in the very end still goes down in the history of movies as a very iconic shot. Now, I've been thinking about this for a while when I got this idea to do this list. My 1, 2, and 3, my 1 was never in question. My 2 and 3 have been flip-flopped back and forth. And I don't necessarily want to appear biased, even though I may be biased when it comes to the situation. But my number 3 is actually going to be Coneheads. I really love the Coneheads sketch. I always loved the chemistry between Jane Curtin and Dan Aykroyd. I thought it worked really well. And I think it played off really well on camera. And the movie worked really well for me. Now, obviously, you have the Conehead family are trying to get along in 1993 America. And I like the way they play this off. I like the way that they have Sinbad as the driving instructor, and Beldar introduces him to the gum, which ends up being a condom. I thought that was really funny. Thought it's done really well. And Beldar and Primat work really well, given the fact that they've created a daughter, Connie, and this gets brought up in the storyline as well. I really like the FBI connection, the team of Michael McKean and David Spade. I think it works really well. I really enjoy that. I still sing Tainted Love the way that they do in the movie. The casting of Jason Alexander as a next-door neighbor, I think that works really well. There's a lot of really great, iconic scenes in this movie, really funny stuff. Some names of the past obviously popping up, uncredited cameos, people like Tom Arnold, John Lovitz. I mean, it's great stuff, it really is. I mean, you see young portrayals of people that would become bigger later on in life. People like Kevin Neal, obviously not Kevin Nealon, but Parker Posey and Drew Carey. And Eddie Griffin has a cameo as well in this movie. I mean, this is an awesome film. It's absolutely hilarious. I still love it to this day. And I still remember the delivery. The blatant product placement for Subway. Chris Farley looks at Michelle Burke and says, "My mom's the only girl I ever known that could take a sandwich like that," when she, of course, engulfs the sandwich in one bite. I love the fireworks. And when basically Primat is told that their services will no longer be needed next year for the pyro. So I love Beldar playing golf. I think that works great. I love the connection with Phil Hartman and Dave Thomas. I love that. That works really well when we finally get back to Remulac, their planet. And I just love the story. I think it's done really well, and it's easily my number 3 on this list. I guess I am going to appear biased, because my number 2 on the list, the first of possibly 2 appearances on the list, depending on how you look at it, is Wayne's World 2. Yeah, I love this movie. I love this movie in every way possible. Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, their characters of Wayne Campbell and Garth Algar, will live on in infamy forever in a day. I think that the Wayne's World gimmick works. Even though the Halloween Horror Nights connection has brought me closer to Bill and Ted, I've never really watched a Bill and Ted film before. Wayne's World always got me, and I love this sequel to the movie. It's got everything you would expect. You have Wayne and Garth have now moved on from the basement all the way to a actual television studio. But the fact is, they do things just like they're used to, and they end up getting kicked off said television studio, and basically they own the rights to the show. So Wayne decides he's going to create a Woodstock-like concert festival, and they're going to get back in the mainstream that way. I really like this movie a lot. The Aerosmith cameo matches the Alice Cooper cameo in the movie. It works really well. Rip Taylor, of all people, being brought into this, and it's funny because when Christopher Walken is asking Wayne who would be involved in Waynestock, he's like, well, it's like, that's going to be me and Garth, and of course, Cassandra can play too, obviously, and then she mentions that she would be happy to play the concert, and then she's even more happy to play the concert when she finds out that Wayne brings up Rip Taylor, of all people, because he sees Rip Taylor in the background with a confetti bucket, and he's like, Rip Taylor? And then he sees an old man fashioning a kayak out of a log, and then he says, okay, who else is going to be there? And he's like, he sees 2 CDs, it's like Aerosmith and Pearl Jam. And then he sees the back of a guy's shirt and he yells Van Halen. And Garth looks at him. He's like, wow, who else? And he's like, an old man fashioning a kayak out of a log. It comes back around. So yeah, I like this a lot. I love the Jurassic Park stuff that's done at Stevenson Park. I really like the characters in this movie. The Handsome Dan character, I always love that. One of my favorites in the movie. You have a really awesome cameo from Harry Shearer. Obviously, you know him from Simpsons fame. And he's that completely stereotypical disc jockey. Doesn't really care about what he's saying or anything. Doesn't care about what you have to say. He just wants to get everything taken care of. And he's going to be a wild time regardless. I love that character, and the Ted McGinley cameo at the beginning of that sequence when Wayne and Garth introduced him is like, hi, Handsome Dan. He's like, I'm not Handsome Dan. And then they're introduced to Harry Shearer, and he plays it oh so well. I love Bob Odenkirk and Robert Schmeigel talking more about SNL history, playing nerds that are standing backstage at the Aerosmith concert. It's like, my mom gave me $1 and dropped me off with a parking ride. I love that line. I think it works really well. Heather Locklear singling from the other side of the party, and they can't get in there. Like, my girlfriend's in there. Well, a lot of guys' girlfriends are in there. I mean, You have a cameo from Olivia d'Abo as Betty Jo, who ends up being a love interest for Garth. And, of course, you have the Kim Basinger cameo of Honey Hornay, where Garth meets her in his start of a relationship, which doesn't really go anywhere because Honey wants Garth to kill her husband, and of course Garth doesn't even want guns, takes the gun, drops it in the plant and everything. It's really funny. Gold, Jerry Gold. I like Charlton Heston, his little cameo there. He replaces the gas station attendant right after Mrs. Robinson plays, when Wayne is about to try to get to the church on time so he can prevent Cassandra from marrying Bobby. I really like this movie a lot. I think it's great. The Weird Naked Indian, the Jim Morrison stuff. You have a great series of stuff. Glenn returns, Ed O'Neill from this first one. Yeah, I love this movie. And Tim Meadows, again, Sammy Davis Jr., it's really great. Him talking to Jim Morrison's really funny. So yeah, Wayne's World 2, just awesome. But I'd be lying to myself if I didn't say the best movie of all time when it comes to Saturday Night Live, and is the standard bearer, without a doubt, is the 1992 classic that I still remember to this day, and that is the original Wayne's World. I love this. I love the sketch, and I love the fact that everything from the sketch that we all love was brought into the film. I love everything. I love how sleazy Rob Lowe is when he's trying to get into Cassandra's pants, obviously, and Wayne knows this, so he's trying to prevent this from happening. And of course, he's the slick music producer trying to make a music video, and obviously Cassandra's kind of falling for everything. Tia Carrere's awesome in this. Lara Flynn Boyle shows up as the crazy girlfriend or ex-girlfriend of Wayne, and it's really funny because she buys him a gun rack, and Wayne's like, I don't even own a gun, yet many guns necessitate owning an entire rack. So yeah, I really like this. Obviously, you have basically Wayne and Garth, they're doing the underground television series and everything, and then they're trying to get on real television in Aurora, and they finally do at the end the great performance mid-movie from Alice Cooper doing Feed My Frankenstein, and the aforementioned We're Not Worthy scene, which is, again, iconic, goes down in movie cinema history without a doubt. I do like the Robert Patrick cameo. It says, have you seen this boy, to Wayne, when he pulls him over, and it's funny because it shows a picture of Edward Furlong. I always love that. Chris Farley, basically the most helpful security guard in the history of man, telling Wayne and Garth where Frankie Sharp's going to be, at what time he's going to be there, so they can make sure that Cassandra ends up getting seen and she gets a record deal out of it. And I love this. I love every second of this movie. It's awesome. It's really funny. Still love it to this day. And I didn't mention it on the second one, but Wayne's World 2, going back to it real quick, the sequel, one of my favorite bits in the history of film is in Wayne's World 2. The bit about Del Preston talking about how many brown M&Ms to fill a brandy glass, or Ozzy Osbourne wouldn't go on stage that night. I love that bit of dialogue. It's awesome, and I still quote it to this day. A lot of iconic stuff came out of Wayne's World. The swing and the extreme close-ups, and just everything. Before Borat used it, and for people that don't know about Wayne and Garth, do your homework when it comes down to it. That not thing, obviously, Borat made it work nowadays, but Wayne and Garth started it off. So yeah, I loved it really well. And I'll never look at certain things the same again. Calgon, ancient Chinese secret, huh? And of course, he tells two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. And it's just so many great lines in them, both movies, and I'd easily make it like 1A and 1B if I could, but no, without a doubt, the best SNL movie of all time is Wayne's World. So that being said, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching the vlog of Randomness. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing a sip and snack, going to focus on some beverages. Friday, AJ's Movie Reviews returns with McFarlane USA, Hot Tub Time Machine, and The Duff. And there's going to be others added to that as well. Saturday, Ashley returns with Gaming with Ash. Sunday, brand new verses. Cryptic Comment is Oscar. We're going to go with that. And, of course, this Saturday, once again, AJ and myself going to City Lights. Going to watch that in Athens, the Charlie Chaplin Classic. And that night is going to be the Independent Spirit Awards. And Sunday night, the night we've been waiting for all year long, the Oscar ceremony, and then AJ, Ashley, and myself will all be doing a recap of that somewhere next week. Halloween Horror Nights news, we've got some, and it's a doozy. We're going to be talking about that very soon on this channel, probably as soon as next week. I look for our finale on the Celebrity Apprentice video coming out this Monday. Of course, we have NXT and Impact for this coming week. The last video was posted yesterday, so you can check that out, my thoughts on TakeOver Arrival, as well as last week's Impact. And, of course, we're going to go into the vlog of randomness and sip and snack next week. AJ's movie reviews the week after with Focus and the Lazarus Effect, and more still to come. Obviously, going to be a great time to be a fan of pop. And I thank you guys and girls out there for watching, for liking, for subscribing, for spreading the word about this channel. Whether it's just me, AJ, and Ashley or not, we're trying to entertain you guys and sometimes educate you guys and sometimes do both at the same time every single time we put on a video here on this channel. So, that being said, thank you guys once again for watching and continuing to watch this channel and watching it grow throughout the, I can actually say this now, years that we've been a part of the YouTube community. And once more, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you are more than welcome to. It's at Sir Owen Disney. Friend request me via Facebook at Owen Disney. Or you can send me an email, sirowen@gmail.com, if you'd like to talk Horror Nights or Disney or Universal, or if you'd like to talk about movies or have ideas for the vlog of randomness, sip and snack, or verses. You're more than welcome to email me at that email and correspond with me, and we'll get it done. If you have a podcast, a theme park or wrestling podcast you'd like me to be a part of, get a hold of me that way, and we'll do some business. So, that being said, thank you guys and girls out there for watching. And real quick before I go, I did a Sticks and Flicks with Ashley talking about the Oscars, the Razzies, and the Spirit Awards. That will be out very soon, and once it's out, I will tweet you guys out a link so you can catch it. So that's coming. I'm also going to be guesting on another podcast very soon. I can't really talk about it yet, but it's going to be happening very soon. I don't know when it's happening, so that's the reason why I can't talk about it yet. More Halloween Horror Nights talk, I'll just put it that way. So that being said, thank you guys and girls out there for watching, and until tomorrow, boys and girls, that's all I gotta say about that.